The Family Life Kids Corner podcast is made possible by listeners like you.
Dad tell you where we're going on vacation this week, Joel?
Yep.
Same place as last time.
Yep.
Do you think the mosquitoes still blot out the sun there?
Yep.
Do you think dads have always taken their kids on miserable camping trips?
Maybe they'll talk about it in today's Kids Corner.
Good morning, sports fans and kids everywhere. Welcome to Godly Living Highlights. I'm Chelsea Lee, and sitting with me at the Kids Corner desk is Mr. Jacobs.
And a fine morning it is, Chelsea. We've got another special set of highlights today with some of the greatest plays from men in the Bible.
Just men, huh? That seems a little unfair.
Well, seeing as Father's Day is tomorrow, we thought it was appropriate to focus on some of the dads in the Bible.
Right, well, there are a lot of those. Who's first?
I'm glad you asked. The first clip comes from the 6th book of the Bible. Let's run the tape.
Hi, I'm Joshua, general and leader of God's people. My life has not been easy. I was at Moses' side when the nation turned its back on God's messages, and when Moses died, God put me in his place as we marched into battle. It was a lot of responsibility, and I know for a fact, without God's help, I could never have done anything. That's why when it came to my family, I chose him to lead us. Other people might forget what he has done, but as for my house, we serve the Lord.
Wow, starting off strong, aren't we? Having one of the greatest heroes in the Bible as a dad's gotta be pretty cool.
I'd agree. When a dad puts all of his trust in God, not only can he do great things, but he also is a great role model and leader for his kids.
Not to mention he's making sure his kids have a great future. We've got to take a break, but don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome back to Godly Living Highlights, the very best examples we could find in the Bible. I'm Lionel Jacobs, and this is our Father's Day special.
That's right, and we're just getting started. The next reel is from our New Testament collection, and he's not even part of the nation of Israel. Weird. Let's check it out.
Pax, my brothers. My name is Cornelius, and as you might guess from my name, I'm not a Jew. I'm not even Greek. No, I'm a Roman centurion. That's right, the unclean conquerors of the world. But despite my heritage, God still wanted me. He told me to send for his servant Peter to teach me about how Jesus came and died so I could join God's family. If this was possible, I wanted everyone I loved here so they could be saved too. I told my wife, my friends, and my children to come hear what God had to say. We all became believers that day, the whole household, and for that, I thank God.
Wow, the whole family became Christians just because Peter went to talk with them? That's pretty cool.
For sure. Peter did the preaching, but Cornelius was a pretty big part of it too. He did everything he could to make sure that his entire family got to hear what God had to say, and that led all of them to receiving the greatest gift of all, salvation through Christ.
I'm guessing that means they trusted in Jesus to save them from their sins.
Right.
Great, so who's next?
The next dad is only mentioned a few times in the Bible, but even though we don't have a lot to go off of, we thought he deserved a mention on this highlight show.
Huh, interesting. Let's roll the tape.
Hello everyone, my name is Zebedee. I'm not super famous, but you probably have heard of my two sons, James and John. They are followers of the one they call Jesus of Nazareth. I remember the day that he called them to follow him. We were on our fishing boats with a bunch of my employees working on the nets. When Jesus called them, they dropped everything and left. I could have stopped them and made them get back to work. I could have gotten angry and kicked them out of the family. But instead, I let them go. If there's one thing I know about being a dad, it's when God calls your kids to ministry, you don't get in the way. After all, even though they are my boys, they really belong to God, and if he calls them, I want them to obey. It's not easy letting go like that, but if I hold on too tight, they'll never see the great things God has for them.
What a highlight. I hadn't even remembered his name, but Zebedee is a pretty cool dad. He let his sons do whatever they wanted.
I don't know if I'd say that, but it does seem that he trusted his kids to make wise choices and knew better than to stand in the way of God's plans for their lives.
So cool. Who's next?
We'll find out right after this. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Godly Living Highlights, finding good role models in the Bible.
Father's Day edition.
Right, so I've been looking at the notes here, and it looks like our next highlight is a pretty hard-working guy.
What makes you say that, Chelsea?
I mean, the guy's name is Job. I know some dads who are really focused on going to work, but to actually be called Job, that's a commitment.
As much as I think you're right about his dedication, in this particular situation, this person's name is pronounced Job.
Oh.
Shall I run the tape?
Yeah, let's do that.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to my home. As you can see, God has been pretty good to me and my family. You might say I'm a man of means. Of course, my kids are pretty used to having a lot of wealth and are always throwing big parties for each other. And though they are good kids, I worry that sometimes they may be so busy having fun that they might not be living in a way that honors God. Because of this, I'm constantly praying that God will forgive them and lead them to know Him more. I don't know what the future holds for them, but it is my prayer that after we finish our days here on earth, we will all meet again and party in the house of God forever and ever.
Another great dad highlight from the Bible.
Job was an amazing man, that's for sure. In fact, God himself boasted about how good Job was. And you know, when God brags about you and your parenting skill, you're doing it right.
I guess praying for your kids is a pretty important part of being a good dad.
I'd agree.
So far, we've learned that good dads set examples for their kids. They make sure their kids learn about and follow God. And they pray for their kids too. Sounds like we've learned all there is to know about the job.
I'm not sure about that. We've got 2 more highlights for the lineup for today that have more to teach us.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Our next break.
And we're back with Godly Living Highlights, learning from the examples we find in the Bible.
That's right, Chelsea. And our next dad isn't like all the others we've talked about today.
Oh, really? Is he a bad father this time?
Hardly. Though he did have some reservations at first.
Reservations? Sounds like a flake if you ask me.
Just listen.
Good morning. My name is Joseph. I wasn't looking to be a dad just yet. I wasn't even married when I found out my girlfriend already had a kid, and it wasn't mine. I didn't hate her for it, but still, it was a shock. But God let me know that He had chosen me for this. This baby was His. He was asking me to be an earthly father for His son and not to be afraid to marry my girlfriend. I decided to obey and take this child as my own, and I am so glad I did. I named him Jesus. I taught him how to be a man, how to work hard, and how to live for God. I'm not perfect, but my son was, just like his Father in heaven, and I couldn't be more proud. He might not have my blood, but he has my love, and I am honored to be his dad.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, I hadn't realized that Jesus had a stepdad.
Kind of cool, isn't it? Joseph is a great example of how when God calls someone to be a dad, biological or not, they can make a huge difference in the lives of their children. Stepdads don't have an easy job, but they are very important to God, and they deserve our love and respect.
Yeah, all dads do, I guess.
Yep.
So, I know it's about the end of the show, but you said there was one more dad for our list.
That's right. And I figured we'd talk about him right after this. So, kids, any guesses who our show's last father from the Bible is?
I think it's got to be one of the more famous ones. Abraham? Jacob? Isaac?
You're just saying that because your name is Isaac.
No, they were the most famous dads in the Bible.
I don't think that's true. Ever heard of David? Noah? Adam?
I think both you guys are off base. All 6 of those guys were really messed up people. Sure, they were great and all, but if you look at the stories, they weren't the best examples of how to be a good dad.
Who said the last example was going to be a good example, Chelsea?
Destin's got a point. Maybe the last father we're going to talk about is a cautionary tale.
What?
He means it could be a warning.
Oh, yeah.
So how about it, Mr. Jacobs? Are we close? Did we get it?
Yeah, we need a hint.
You've mentioned a lot of good guesses, but the dad I'm thinking of isn't any of them. This dad has millions of kids. He's the best example there is, and we've been talking about him all morning.
Wait, what?
Yeah, how can a dad have millions of kids? I mean, even if he adopted them all, that'd take forever.
Unless... Oh, I get it. You're talking about God.
Of course! He's dad over all dads. Our heavenly Father. The rest of the dads in the Bible are pretty bad.
The Bible does have very few stories about dads that got everything right every time. And to a point, I think that's on purpose. God is trying to show us that we always fall short of God's goodness and glory, and despite our failures, He will always show us love. And by doing so, He's showing us how to be better fathers.
So, if dads are always going to mess up, then why does God want us to respect and obey them?
God doesn't need a reason. If He says to do it, then it's the right thing to do.
Is that how it works?
God's commands do work that way, but that's not to say God doesn't have a reason for what He says.
So what is the reason?
Well, there are a few. Firstly being that kids are gifts God gives to parents. Kids can be challenging, but they also bring joy, pride, and hope to a family. When we don't obey or respect our parents, we make it harder for them to feel those good things, and it can really hurt them, or worse, put us in danger.
Danger? You mean like getting punished?
That's not quite what I meant. In Hebrews 12, we learn that discipline is how good fathers, including God, train their kids to do the right thing. But regardless of that issue, God also gave us our fathers to protect and teach us. And if we don't listen to their warnings and instructions, let's say it's probably not going to be good.
Yeah. My dad isn't perfect, but he does tell me that I need to stop when I'm doing something that'll get me hurt or in trouble.
And my dad is always teaching me stuff, even if I'm not always interested.
And my dad always is cheering me on when I do my best. And even when I'm not sometimes.
Dads are a great gift, and that's why we celebrate them every Father's Day.
Yeah, speaking of which, I'd better get home. Mom told me to get the lawn mowed before Dad got to it.
Ooh, I'm stealing that one. I know what I'm doing for my dad today.
You know cards are a thing, right?
Ooh, I know what else I'm doing today.
All right, guys, have a great Father's Day.
You too.
You come in, Isaac?
Yeah, I'm just turning off the radio.
Thanks for listening to the Kids Corner podcast. If you had fun listening, be sure to share it with your friends. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can join us every week. The Kids Corner and other Family Life podcasts are made possible by your financial support. Learn more at familylife.org.